Okay, good morning. My name is Shanshrita Dotto and today I will going to teach you the price effect. So the price effect is the how the demand for X commodity will change with the change in the price of the X commodity. So the effect of in the demand for X commodity due to the changes in the price of X commodity is ultimately the price effect. Now the price effect is a summation of the two different effects. That means when the price of the X commodity is changing, there are two different type of situation occurred. One situation is that substitution effect. That is, suppose we are considering, let me erase it first. Suppose we are considering two different commodities. One is Y commodity, another is the X commodity. Now suppose if the price of X commodity has reduced with the same amount of constant amount of price of Y commodity, now Y is relatively cheaper, relatively costlier compared to the price of X commodity. Though the price of Y commodity is remaining at same level, now Y is much costlier compared to the X. So just because of that reason, the consumer will substitute some amount of Y commodity with the some extra amount of X commodity. In other words, the consumer will substitute the costlier commodity with the cheaper one, and this is the effect of substitution effect. Now with the changes in the price of X commodity, there is another effect which happen. The other effect is that the real income of the consumer will change. Now the real income of the consumer is the nominal income of the consumer divided by the price level. Now suppose if the price of X commodity has been reduced, that will ultimately increase the real income of the consumer. And as we know, if the income of the consumer will change, that will induce the consumer to change his consumption pattern. Now as the price of X commodity has been reduced, that will increase the real income of the consumer, and as the real income of the consumer will increase, the consumer will further try to increase his consumption of the X commodity, and that increment in the consumption of X commodity is just because of the increment in the income effect, and that's why it is called the income effect. So the summation of these two effects will give us ultimately the price effect. Now we can illustrate it with the help of a diagram. Now here in this diagram, we are measuring the demand for Y commodity along vertical axis and the demand for X commodity along horizontal axis. Now initially, consumer is facing a budget line. So suppose AB is the budget line, initial budget line of the consumer. And consumer is initially consuming at point E0, where the IC0 is tangent with the AB budget line. So E0 is the initial equilibrium point, and as per the equilibrium point E0, the consumer is consuming Y0 amount of Y commodity and X0 amount of X commodity. Now if we consider a decrease in the price of X commodity, that will swing the budget line from AB to AC. Now the consumer will consume at point suppose E1, where the new budget line is tangent with the new IC1. So E1 is the new equilibrium point. So just because of the reason that the price of X commodity has been reduced, so the consumer will increase his consumption of X commodity from X0 to X1, and that increment in the consumption of X commodity is ultimately the price effect. Now that increment could be divided into two parts. As we mentioned, one is the substitution effect and other is the income effect. So X0 to X1 increment is the price effect. Now to find out one particular effect, suppose to find out the substitution effect, we need to eliminate the changes in his real income. So if we eliminate the effect of change in income, we could find out the substitution effect. Now to eliminate the changes in the price of, now to eliminate the changes in the real income of the consumer, we need to eliminate some of his nominal income to maintain his real income at the previous level. Now, as we know, if the nominal income of the consumer will reduce, that will shift the budget line parallelly downwards. So, the new budget line will pass through the initial equilibrium point E0. So, now it is as per the economist Slutsky, if the new budget line, after eliminating his nominal income, if the new budget line will pass through the initial equilibrium point E0, then his real income will remain at the previous level. So, here the new budget line will be A prime C prime. So, now at budget line A prime C prime, the real income of the consumer has been remained same. So, as per the new equilibrium, the consumer will now consume at point E2. So, as per the E2, the consumer is now consuming X2 amount of X commodity. Now, the increment in the consumption of X commodity from X0 to X2 is just because of the reason that Y has been much costlier compared to the prices of X commodity. So, consumer will substitute some amount of the costlier commodity, that is some amount of the Y commodity will reduce and will be substituted with the some extra amount of X commodity. So, this is called the substitution effect, where his real income has been remained same. Now, to find out the income effect, we need to again allow his real income to increase at the new level. So, as per the new budget line AC, after the changes in the price of X commodity, the consumer was consuming at point E1. So, the increment in the consumption of X commodity from X2 to X1 is just because of the reason that consumer is feel much richer, and just because of that feeling, the consumer will further increase some amount of the X commodity, that is from X0 to X1. So, this is called the income effect. So, the substitution effect is X0 to X2, and the income effect is X2 to X1, and the summation of these two will give us the price effect, that is the ultimate increment in the consumption of X commodity is from X0 to X1, and that is the price effect. And it is all about the diagrammatically illustration of the price effect. So, if I summarize all of this price effect, is that the price effect is the summation of the substitution effect and income effect. Initially, AB was the budget line and initial equilibrium was E0. Now, suppose the price of the X commodity has been reduced, that will further swing the budget line from AB to AC, and the new equilibrium occur at point E1. If this is ultimate the price effect. If we find out the substitution effect separately, then we need to eliminate his nominal income such that his new budget line will pass through the initial equilibrium point E0. So, as per our diagram, A prime C prime is the new budget line with a constant level of real income, and as per the budget line A prime C prime, the equilibrium will occur at point E2 and the consumer will consume X2 amount of X commodity. So, the increment in the consumption of X commodity from X0 to X2 is just because of the reason of the relatively increment in the price of Y commodity. So, consumer will substitute Y commodity with the consumption of X commodity. So, this is the substitution effect, and the increment in the consumption of X commodity from X2 to X1 is the income effect, and summation of these two will give us the price effect, that is X0 to X1. Thanks for watching.